One.
Good afternoon. This is a public hearing of the Chatham Conservation Commission being held on January 26th, 2022, in accordance with the Massachusetts Wetlands Protection Act and the Town of Chatham Wetlands Protection Bylaw and Regulations. My name is Bob Rawls and I serve as the chair. Hearings are broadcast live on Channel 18 and are also recorded for the on-demand archives and available on the town's website. Please let me know if anyone else is recording this meeting. Today's hearing is being conducted via a remote video conference, originally pursuant to the governor's emergency COVID order and now under an order allowing remote public meetings through April 1st, 2022. The agenda and copies of documents for review today are posted on the town's website. To all participants, after presentations by applicants and/or their representatives, I will normally ask for comments and questions from commissioners, then from any interested parties. Please remain muted unless you're speaking. If you're attending by phone, mute using *6 and use *6 again to unmute. If you're on the Teams platform, indicate that you wish to speak by using the raise hand feature. If you're attending by phone, please unmute with *6 and address the chair. When recognized, please identify yourself for the record. If you are not a commissioner and you are on the Teams platform, please keep your camera turned off unless you're speaking. The commission will vote on each matter by roll call. So that we have a record of a quorum, I will now ask each commissioner to indicate their presence. Vice Chair Bob Del Vecchio.
Present.
Janet Williams.
Present.
Karen Latin.
Present.
And I believe that Mary is not here, but I'll just check. And by the silence, I think that's correct. She's not here. And Elise Gordon is new to the commission as of today, I think, but she is away. Will not be able to join us, so we'll welcome her more formally next time. Associate Member William Doherty.
Present.
And I am here as well, so we have a quorum. Nikki Smith, Chatham's conservation agent, will now lead us through today's agenda, including whether any items are being continued.
No items are being continued. The first thing up is the notice of intents, and the first one is 88 Siegel Road, Richard and Susan Logan, map 15A, parcel 6-H137, SE 10-3533, proposed landscape and hardscape improvements and replace an existing fence. And when you're good to start.
Do we have anyone for 88 Siegel?
Yeah. Lynn, are you there?
She's muted.
Okay. It's on there twice. One of them is unmuted, one of them is muted.
Well.
Let's hope she's on the right one. I guess we're going to have to forge ahead as much as we can until she is able to join us. Lynn, if you are trying to get through, make sure that you are unmuted. If you're on the phone with *6. Well, maybe we should.
Mr. Chairman, this is Mark.
Yes.
This is Mark at Channel 18. The fact that she's in the meeting twice is also problematic.
Okay. I wonder if we should, Nikki, just move on to the next and then come back, because we only have 3 NOIs to deal with.
Yeah, I will open the next one for Bridge Street, assuming that they are ready to go. And I will send, oh, she's leaving, so that's a good sign.
Well, let's give her another second. Maybe she's
Okay.
Figuring it out. I think she's still got problems. So then let's go ahead and move on. We'll come back.
All right, so we have 307 Bridge Street, David Stone, map 16B, parcel 16-F1. That is, we do not have an SE number for that one. Proposed repairs to the existing boathouse, pool deck, and landscaping site improvements.
Okay, we have a lot of faces on the screen. Are you all here for 307? Okay. Anybody like to start us off?
Sure. This is Todd Turcott from Coastal Engineering, representing David Stone and the project team. On the call, I have from Coastal Engineering also Cole Bateman, and from Blue Claw Associates, I have JT Newton. Nikki, you're gonna share, or you want me to present?
It should be up.
Okay.
But it's up to you either way. I can do you want your plan first or?
I have a slideshow kind of to go through that will kind of make it easy and concise, if that helps.
Easy and
Yeah, I'll let
concise
you
is
do it
what
then.
we're all about here.
Great. All right, let me share my screen. You just make sure you're seeing the screen.
Yep, it's there.
All right. So as the application stated, we are proposing repairs and accessibility improvements to the existing boathouse, pier, and pool area at 307 Bridge Street. And again, Blue Claw Associates and Coastal Engineering have prepared these plans. And just to give you a little history, because it is a unique site in that it has a existing pool directly on the coastal bank and on the up against the bulkhead. The existing boathouse, bulkhead, deck, and timber pier and pool house structure were licensed in 1955, according to the Mass DEP Chapter 91 license. The pool is believed to have been installed sometime in the 50s. However, the earliest plan recorded showing the pool that we could find was in 1976, and it was a plan recorded with the town of Chatham planning. Additionally, the existing bulkhead just seaward of the pool was reportedly repaired in the 90s with an order of conditions that was issued in 1994. The project that we're including, the project includes, like I said, the repairs to the existing boathouse and deck foundation, and some minor repairs to the boathouse, replacement of the existing timber bulkhead directly behind the boathouse, improved accessibility to the boathouse, pier, and pool with a handicap accessible path, and reconstructed stairs, repair to existing pool deck area and improved handicap accessibility around the pool, invasive species mitigation in the landscape area, and I'll let JT speak to that later on. And then reconstruction of existing landscape retaining wall for accessibility improvements. And one other item is removing and replacing in kind the existing pump to the septic system from the pool house. The boathouse foundation and deck foundation currently consist of 30 existing piles. We are proposing to replace those piles with 21 new piles, reducing the impact, and was presented in the alternatives in the narrative. The boathouse will basically be lifted off and temporarily supported on a pile structure, then put back and installed on the new pile foundation. Next, the existing deck around the pool will be reconstructed to keep it all at one level and provide easier access into the pool and around the pool for the handicap accessibility. Then we are replacing and improving the stairs. The access stairs currently do not have a a rise and run that meets code requirements and are a little awkward. So we're improving those. And the existing path is not handicap accessible. An existing path actually is 55 feet long. This is a rather steep slope. Our proposed path is about 90 feet long, will be about 13% slope. And as part of our alternatives analysis, we looked at the fact that if we were to completely comply with ADA compliance, we would be in excess of 165 feet of a path needed. So we reduced that with the handicap accessibility using assistance and coming up with a reasonable length of 90 feet in that area. And you can see the existing path is through the shrubs right through here. And the proposed path is basically in the same area, just a little bit more of a serpentine route to get down there and gently reduce the grade. The existing stairs are jagged through the slope and not quite easy to get down. We are basically proposing them in the same location, just improved rise and run. And I think with that, I'll turn it over to JT to talk about the accessibility and landscaping around the pool that's going to improve that.
Hello, everyone. My name is JT Newton with Blue Clar Associates. So as Todd had mentioned, we worked out on the layout of the improvements around the pool as well as getting access to it. The current, some of this may be a little bit repetitive, but I think it's important to reinforce. The reason why we're doing a lot of this is for making it handicap accessible. There are 2 residences that live at the property that have mobility issues. One of them is in a wheelchair, so they have very extreme difficult time getting down into this area and enjoying the area of the property. The current slope to get down is anywhere between 20 and 25%, that pathway that you saw in the previous picture. 25% is difficult even for somebody sometimes to walk down, let alone to get down in a wheelchair. ADA recommends that any sloped area should be a 1 in 12 slope or 8.3% grade. With assistance in a residential setting, they recommend they will allow up to a recommendation of 2 in 12 or 16.7. At the end of the day, we still have to meet grades whether it's property line grades or the fact that there's an existing pool there that sets the bottom grade to it, essentially. So with that, we tried to adjust the slope so that we can get as close to the 8.3% slope while minimizing the impact on the slope itself. So as a result, with the path that we've created, it comes up with a 13%, which is well within the guidelines of 1 in 12 to 2 to 12, with the assistance of somebody helping with the wheelchair itself. So once you're down there, there are other areas that really could kind of use improvements. Besides the pool itself needs renovation, which is one of the reasons why this all kind of began. As was stated earlier, it is at least a 40-plus-year-old pool. The plumbing needs to be upgraded as well as the interior, but accessing around it is very difficult. You can see that there's a ramp, but there's still limited ability to get around the pool. So with that, we were proposing raising the pool deck so that it is on the same level as the pool coping to allow for easy access completely around the pool. We were increasing the area on the landward side so that it still could be furnished, but still accessible for a wheelchair to be getting around, so it doesn't feel like it's an obstacle course to get from one point to another, as well as installing a built-in ramp to be able to get into the restroom that is attached to the pool house. There is as a result of doing these modifications, and there was also in the shallow end, there's also installation of a chair lift to allow the person that's in the wheelchair to actually get into the pool to enjoy the pool. So with this, there is a modest increase in hardscape from what is currently there. There's approximately 400 square feet additional hardscape surface in one way or another. Most of it occurs where the kind of the intersection between where the slope, the path is, as well as the new staircase location. It basically, we're extending the boardwalk so that it's just a continuation, so it's for easier access around. That increase, we are once we regrade the area, obviously there's some plants that will need to be replaced. There is along the slope, there's a monoculture of juniper that we would be removing in order to allow for the proper regrading of the pathway. But there's also some invasive plants that are there, particularly up near the coastal bank, top of the coastal bank near the stairs. There's some Japanese knotweed, as well as some Rosa grossa, which, well, can argue whether it's invasive or not, is certainly undesirable around the pool along the bulkhead. So all that would be removed, replaced with native plants, a more biodiverse list of plants. Currently, like I said, there's really a monoculture of juniper. We're proposing 10 different plants to be going into that location. And then expanding the actual the planting area so that we've added another over 1,100 square feet of native plants to mitigate for the hardscape that we are proposing. Basically, that's the overview of everything. With that, I'd be happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Okay, thank you. I'll open this up for any commissioner with a question. Oh, there we have Janet. Go ahead, you're muted, Janet.
Yep, thank you for that. Thank you. Question about, can you describe, I think, Todd, this is for you, maybe, I'm not sure which one of you, the proposal for the configuration of the stairs. I went part way up and down the stairs. I didn't go all the way because I was looking at the path. Are they going to be, are there risers? Are they going to be open, or how's it going to be designed?
That's a JT question, so I'll let JT answer.
JT, yeah.
Rises, I would think that we'd keep it similar to what it's there, keeping it open as much as possible. There's really no reason that we need to have it fully enclosed. It's really changing the heights of the risers and run. I mean, the standard there's a ratio that you use for rise and run. 2 risers plus a tread should equal around 26, 27 inches. What we have is more like 20 inches. For somebody like me who has no depth perception, it was a nightmare to get down those stairs because you have 4-inch risers and 12-inch treads. It's just, I was not comfortable at all going down. So really what we're doing is just reconfiguring the height of the risers. So we're actually, there's currently, I believe, 37 steps to get down. We're reducing that down to 27 steps, and by doing 7-inch risers with 12-inch treads, so that we'd have that ratio that's still there, making it a more comfortable and standard way to get down. Also, if you had made it the full depth down, you'll notice the last step is, I believe, you're going down these 4-inch steps and then suddenly it becomes 7-inch. Then there are some timber ones that are now 6.5-inch, and then the last step is 9-inch. So we're trying to make it as consistent and easy as access as possible for anybody to get down those stairs.
Do you need risers? Could they be open with just the treads?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it'd be very similar to what's there now.
Okay, so there's no block, or there's no wood that's forming a riser. It's just an open.
Yeah, just the stringer. Okay. I mean, it's really just access that we're trying to enhance, not. I mean,
so it's 7 inches,
like
tread to tread as it goes. Okay, right. I got it. Okay. And I guess there's another question for you, JT, about can you describe what regrading you're going to need to do in order to, using the existing contours, how will they change? And do you need to bring in fill from outside to accomplish this?
No, actually, this is pretty much a complete cut process You can see it from the enlargement of the concept plan. Yeah, that one there. You can see those solid lines are the proposed grades. So we are actually trying to cut back the grade so that we can make it a little bit more level than what it currently is, going from 25% to 13%. It is a fairly, for the most part, it's a cut process, which that cut process will also allow us to be where the knotweed's located, to actually remove the soil and properly dispose of it, as opposed to mechanically removing the knotweed and chemically treating the area in the hopes of getting rid of the invasive plants. This is a much cleaner process because we're actually removing the soil in those areas. And then obviously once that the area is regraded, then it gets stabilized with jute, and then we would be doing at least initially doing the wildflower, wild grass seed mix to stabilize it, and then add the plants onto it. The whole idea is not to just have lawn going down. It's the only path that we would be maintaining access would be where the handicapped access is located. Everything else is still a fairly steep grade. We're going anywhere between 18 to 40%, which sounds steep, but the current areas where the slope that's being regraded, it's up to 50. In some areas, it's over 50%. So we're actually making the whole area a gentler slope.
And what happens when that gentler slope intersects with the existing slope behind the boathouse? How does that transition work?
Behind the boathouse, we don't go too much further than where the stairs are located. You can see where the stairs is kind of are inverted L-shaped. Yeah, where the mouse cursor is going. We're only going as far as that area to regrade, and then all the other remaining area stays what it is. So we don't have to regrade the entire slope. The whole idea is to minimize the amount of regrading that's needed, whereby also minimizing the amount of plants that we're replacing. But it would be nice to, in the middle section, not to just replace them with more junipers. The whole slope is essentially covered with junipers. We'd like to make it a more biodiverse collection of plants that are there.
Okay, so then I take it that what you're saying is that the process is going to result in removing some of the material that's currently on the slope, along with the knotweed. How far down do you have to go to get to have a complete removal of the knotweed?
Luckily right now the knotweed is primarily along the top of the coastal bank. There are a few areas of knotweed that's near the pool house area, but that would be actually replaced with the ramp that is to gain access. The primary areas where you see it is where it says B with the asterisk. That is where most of the invasive plants are located. That's also where the grade is occurring. So we would be just confining it to that spot there.
Okay. Did I miss it, or was there, as you described the process, it's somewhat complicated, needs to be staged properly. Is there a work protocol that lays out this process and what's going to happen when?
There is a formal process has not been created, but we certainly can be providing that for the Conservation Commission so that they understand what's going on exactly when and where. Yep,
we need that for the record. Okay, let me see. And all right, I'm going to let Bob Rawls pick up from here while I look over your plant list, which I haven't done yet. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Janet. Well, I'll let Bob pick up for you. The other Bob.
Okay, Bob, thanks. I got a question about the septic system first. Has that been inspected? Is that why you determined that the pump was bad?
That would probably go with
We have an awful lot of echo there, feedback.
Sorry.
Mr. Chairman, yeah, Jason Stone's in the meeting.
This is Jason Stone speaking.
Oh.
That septic system that is there is a cesspool on the property at the top of the bank. There are 3 cesspools on the property, 4 actually. The one that serves the waterfront is up at the top of the hill, and you can actually see where it is on on the map there where it says concrete lid. That tank is about 6 feet in diameter and 20 feet deep, and the cesspools have, you know, holes in the sides of the tank for the liquid to go out into the ground. Tank is the sewage effluent is pumped from the holding tank down at the boathouse up into that tank. And we've looked in there a few times over the years and have never seen any liquid at all in the bottom of it. The cesspool we're talking about. So we're not planning on making any changes to the tank, the cesspool where the effluent goes to. We're planning on replacing the steel holding tank, which is where the toilet flushes into behind the boathouse there. And a pump house, that is. Pool pump house, and replacing the pump that pumps the effluent up to the cesspool.
Okay, this is a question for the engineer. It's not required that the cesspool be changed to a Title V at this point, correct?
Correct, Art. We have not inspected that, and as part of this process, it was simply replacing the pump and the holding tank from the pool house. Basically, it's a plumbing structure that was moving the effluent from the pool house up to the septic system. It's not the full component. It was not part of the scope of this.
Okay, should the cesspool be inspected to make sure it's still in working order?
I will have to talk with my SDS side of the house to get that answer, but when we talked to them initially, when this was just being the pool house area, it was a plumbing fixture that was just transferring the pump. It's a matter of the holding tank itself. It was an old steel tank, but I can get that answer for you directly.
Okay, thank you.
This is Nikki. Quick, I do have concern that you're not going to get your building permits signed off on without upgrading to a Title V. In general, what I've seen in other towns, and I haven't come across it yet in Chatham, is that the health department reviews the building permit, and if it's not up to code as far as Title V, then you would be required to upgrade. So I would check into that, I guess.
Understood.
Okay, I just have a few more questions. The Rugosa Rose is along the coastal bank, is that correct?
That is correct. That there is, I think, one or two shrubs within the slope itself where we're regrading, but the primary area is along the bulkhead, essentially between the bulkhead and the boardwalk that goes on the water side of the pool.
Okay, and what are you going to be replacing the Rugosa Rose with?
With primarily we're doing it because I mean it's still a very narrow space. We're doing with beach grass.
Beach grass? Okay.
Yes.
Is that listed on the plan?
Yes, it is.
Okay. There's some erosion, speaking of the coastal bank, there's some erosion in front of the pool house, not the pool house, the boathouse. You're not thinking of addressing that at this point?
I'm not aware of where that's located, so I'd have to take a closer look and talk with the engineers about that.
In front of the boathouse, in the salt marsh between that and the pier?
Yes.
We were not looking at that. We were supporting the structure. We were not going to try to touch the salt marsh as much as possible.
Okay, you might just want to take a look at that and see. It looks like it's heading right towards the boathouse. It's pretty.
Well, that's why the foundations. It's a pile supported structure, and behind the boathouse, right behind this area, there's a timber bulkhead that's being replaced with a vinyl bulkhead when the boathouse gets relocated. So we're designing it to account for that continued, but we weren't looking at doing any salt marsh restoration at this point.
Okay.
Are you referring to the area in front of the pump house, the pool pump house where the old concrete bulkhead is still there?
No, this is the boathouse.
No, I know what you're talking about in front, basically right in front of the boathouse in this area.
Right.
We're not
Yes.
looking at doing any salt marsh restoration as part of this.
Okay. The pool house has that bath. It's currently without a door. Are you planning on putting a door on it, or how is that going to work?
JT, you have anything on that?
No, I do not. The actual redesign of any sort of interior work of the pool house, I have not discussed with the homeowner at this time. Certainly, I would think that it would potentially make sense to have a door.
Yeah, we are planning on replacing the doors on that building.
Yeah, okay, thank you. Let's see, what else? The juniper along that slope is provides some nesting habitat for birds and so forth. You're planning on removing all of it just to change the grade along the slope?
No, down the middle would be removed in order to regrade, but there's still a fair bit of juniper that is to the far side of essentially in front of the pool house up the slope. There would still be a fair bit of juniper there, as well as along the staircase once between the boathouse area that we're not impeding. Those areas that say A, we're not touching at all. It's just the area that says B where we have to deal with the grade aspect of it. So there would still be a fair bit of juniper that is still located. And then obviously, while it does provide nesting areas, we are also we're now providing potential areas for food and other nesting areas using the new native plants that we're installing. So like I said, there's no longer going to be just a monoculture of juniper going the whole length. We're trying to create a bit more diversity in the area that we're impacting.
That's a good thing, thank you. I think that's all I had right now. I can't think of anything else at this point. One thing, there's going to be a patio around the pool, a new patio, and permeable patio.
Yes, the final material that we're using has not been determined. It's really at the end of the day going to come down to cost. There's a concrete patio area that's wet set concrete. That's going to be removed because of the plumbing that needs to be done. That area will be replaced with on a dried set as opposed to a poured concrete. And then the rest of the pool area, whether we do an extension of the same material or if it's going to be wood, that, like I said, has yet to be determined depending on the final cost. But we're not increasing any impervious areas. It's all going to be either permeable or not any. We're not expanding it in any sort of way that currently that's what's there.
And that pine that has to be removed behind the pool house because of the new retaining wall that has to be removed.
Yeah, besides the fact that it's relatively close to the pool house and leaning a bit towards the pool house on a steep slope, but one of the main reasons is so that we have now, once again, handicapped access to the restroom that is currently located. Right now, it's a very tight space even to walk, let alone to use a wheelchair.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Thank you, Bob. Janet, do you have a follow-up question or two?
Yes, thank you. Coming back, so from what we can tell, the pool was built sometime between the late 50s and the early 70s-ish, before 76 when it first appears. But there's never been a permit issued for its construction that took into account any wetlands regulations or standards. Is that correct?
That's correct. It was prior to the 310 CMR from 1978, so it was already permitted.
Okay.
Or already installed.
Well,
yes.
Yes, it was installed under whatever the permitting process was at that point that didn't.
Exactly. Yep.
So is it currently, how is it current, what is the current disinfection system? Is it chlorinated or?
Yes. It is currently chlorinated.
Okay. And what are the repairs that are contemplated to be done to it? This is like about a 45-year-old pool. So what is the nature and the scope of the repairs that are going to take place?
Basically, along the upper side of the pool in this area, the skimmers that are in there and the plumbing that pulls the filtration back in, that's what's getting ripped up from the concrete. That plumbing is getting repaired, replaced, and then put back. So that's really the extent of the pool repairs for the plumbing side of it. It's all, they're pretty much all on one side of that system.
And is that going to necessitate draining the pool down to access that area?
For this time, I believe, that's the pool manufacturer, but that'll go down to a certain level. I don't think it'll have to go down all the way. It'll just need to go down to a level that they don't have to deal with the water in the plumbing, which is a foot or two.
Yeah, but given its location and the fact that it's chlorinated, the concern is that none of that water ends up in Mill Pond. That's all.
I think that can be handled as part of the conditions as to what needs to be done with it. We can determine how much volume of water that is and come up with a solution.
Yeah.
We had,
This
under
will
a
be,
normal operation,
it will be actively
we-
permitted as part of this permit. So it carries with it at least an implication, if not an outright statement from the Conservation Commission that this pool is okay as a pre-existing structure. But we always have real concerns about chlorination when it's near any kind of a resource area in terms of either leaks or overflows or accidents of any kind. So has there ever been any consideration given to moving to a different non-chlorine based disinfection system?
Not at this time. No, I don't believe there has been. Pool's been in operation, as he said, since at least almost 50 years. And one of the previous orders in '94, is our understanding, was the timber bulkhead replacement that actually protects the pool and the coastal bank in that area. So that was all part of it at that time and discussed. And since '94 till now, there really hasn't been any repairs or major improvements to the pool area. So this is the first time it's being done.
It's certainly lucky, given what I know about the nature of swimming pools. What's the difference in elevation between the top of the bulkhead and the pool level?
The pool level is, go back up a couple. The pool deck is around elevation 6. And I believe the bulkhead is just below that, in front of it, maybe a foot or two below it.
Okay, so about somewhere around 5.
Yeah.
Okay.
Basically, if you look at this picture, the bulkhead is really at the same elevation as the deck, maybe a little bit lower. So it's about a foot and a half, maybe.
Okay, and the deck is going to come up slightly to meet that. Is it going to cover the coping or is it going to be just flush to it?
It's going to come up all the way to it's going to come up above the coping. We're going to actually go over it, so it's all the way around it, so it's straight access into it.
Okay, and that's going to be, I mean, I heard, I guess JT or somebody say this, it's going to be, if not timber, some kind of planking material that will have, what's below
Yes,
that?
I believe the plan is the timber that's along the coastal side is going to remain as timber. It's the impermeable, the different decking is up in this area where it's concrete now.
Right.
There'll be a stretch that'll be concrete where the skimmers are, which is, you can see this is where the plumbing repair is going to occur. And then behind this, where this retaining wall gets pushed back for accessibility, this will be that pavers to be determined by JT at that time.
Yeah, and the decking itself, like I said, it may be still remain as as wood, mahogany or whatnot, or we may do a surface that complements the patio portion, which the base would still remain the same. You can put pavers on top of a wood structure, it is the underlayment that gets different. It's like a system called silica grate, which is basically a highly engineered bottom version of a milk crate that gets secured down on top of the wood structure, the pressure treated carcass that's underneath of any deck. And then you can apply, whether it is stone, porcelain, pavers, or any other hardscape product. And because of the way that it is installed, we can still do it without doing any sort of polysand in between. So the water would still be penetrating through much like it would with a wood deck. There's the only difference is that it's that surface deck that changes. And like I said, at the end of the day, it's just going to come down to the cost aspect, whatever's fits into the budget and obviously still looks good.
Okay, thank you. That's it for now. Thank you.
Thank you, Janet. Anyone else? Okay, I have just a few things. This is obviously a situation that had it been proposed after the town's conservation regulations were put in place, none of it would be there. So it's just sort of an example as to why we have the Wetlands Protection Act and the bylaws. But nevertheless, it does appear to be grandfathered, as they say. And even though there might be some of us who wish to undo the sins of the past, there's probably very little that we can do about it. I do have just some random questions here. Is there irrigation within the NDZ? In-ground irrigation currently or proposed?
There's currently no irrigation, but obviously the areas that we're going to be impacting, we would be putting in a temporary irrigation system in order to ensure that the plants survive and thrive. And then, like I said, it'd be temporary, that it would be removed once, just like it would in any sort of conservation area plants.
Yeah, a whole lot of your voice became robotic there for a while, but I think we're past that. Actually, I'll ask Nikki the next question. Nikki, do you believe that Shellfish needs to weigh in on this at all?
It's not a bad idea. I don't think they'll have much to say, but I will definitely send her the proposal and just give her the heads up and see if Renee has any comments on it. But I don't foresee her having anything since it's already in existence.
Yeah, just to cross the T. There's a pine being removed, as we discussed, as because of construction. I noticed that you're putting in 2 trees among the mitigation, 2 service berries. Of course, I might argue that those are shrubs as much as they are trees, but nevertheless, are those in compensation for the removed tree, or is that a separate issue?
We were thinking that it would be in compensation. Obviously, if there's a recommendation that the Conservation Commission would require a different type of plant, we would certainly entertain that. But the whole idea was to, like I said, to try to create more diverse mix of plants that are there than what's currently located. It is a scrub pine that we're taking out, but we can certainly be putting in a actual tree and that makes sense in the area if that's something that's required by the Conservation Commission.
Well, I just wanted to establish that they are in compensation for the removed tree, so that's useful.
That was primarily the use of those larger plants, and then obviously the bulk of the remaining plants was to adjust for the junipers that we are taking out, plus the new plants, overall plants that are going in.
Yeah. Service berries are probably adequate for this purpose, unless you have a better idea on your own. How is the pool water typically removed?
In discussions with the client, they don't remove it. They
don't. Oh, I see.
They let it get, they don't add any, and so as the end of the summer comes, they just make sure that it's not going to be any. They'll wash it during the winter for freezing and not deal with anything. But it's typically not removed.
All right, and that works. Okay.
Seems to.
Because one thing we often do in our orders of conditions is with pool water, we like to have it, well, obviously we don't want it, especially if it's chlorinated, dumped into a resource area. And so in a case like this, you know, I'm not sure you would have any alternative except to truck it out or
Right.
something like that. So it sounds like if we were to put that, it's a kind of a standard condition. If we put that in there, it wouldn't.
Or pump it out to an area upland outside the resource areas and make sure that drainage is dealt with. We can look at other alternatives.
So we have a very large, oversized filtration system in this pool house, much larger than is needed for this pool. So we really don't have any problems reusing the same water. We found that it's been very successful year after year, and really haven't had to get rid of it at all.
Yeah. Okay.
Additionally, we, you know, at the end of the season, which, you know, we stop swimming in there, it gets too cold at the end of August. So the filtration system and the chlorination system is turned off, and as you may know, the chlorine dissipates. So within a week or two after the system being turned off, the chlorine level in the water drops to 0. There is no chlorine in the water.
Okay.
Until next summer when we start the system up again.
Then you add some more in the summer. All right, but you see the point. We want to stop
Absolutely
any occasions where chlorinated water is just, you know, pumped out into the NDZ, which then goes right into Mill Pond.
Right.
And the only my final question was, normally we often ask for demarcation of mitigation areas, and in this particular case, I could see that it would be useful. I didn't actually pick up on the fact that the A areas were the existing juniper, as that's good to know, and I do see that now when I look a little more closely in your plan. But what do you say about some sort of demarcation of the non-A mitigation areas so that everyone understands that that's a special area that is not to be messed with?
Yeah, basically just some sort of signage indicating it.
Well, sometimes we will ask. Sometimes we arrive at a split rail fence. Sometimes we arrive at a row of a series of stone markers. Sometimes signs. I love signs. Most applicants don't seem to like the idea of signs, but I think it's very educational to have a sign. This is a mitigation area. Please, it should remain this way, and so forth and so on. So whatever you would work best for your client, you know, from an aesthetic point of view, would probably be fine.
Yeah, I'll leave that to JT's landscape architect side of it.
And will there be, I forget now, the grass that is in the NDZ, and is that, or will, what, just characterize what it is and what it will be after the project is over. It'll be unchanged, I guess. And is it Cape Cod lawn essentially, or is it what we would call turf lawn?
Yeah, it's a Cape Cod lawn that's currently out there, and that's what would be still maintained as such.
And it's not fertilized and no pesticides. Or
no.
Okay, we would have a standard language like that in our orders of conditions to reinforce that. Okay.
Yeah, we don't use any fertilizer on our lawn currently.
All right. So I'm not, everyone feel free on the commission, feel free to correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm not hearing anything that necessarily would hold us up going forward. I think we're talking about, from my perspective, we're asking for some demarcation, which is probably easily dealt with before we go to orders of conditions. Anything else?
We have to get a determination on the septic.
Oh, the septic. That's right. That's right. That is potentially a big deal. Yeah.
Well, yes and no. I understand, and we'll definitely address that. However, you know, this is part of one of the improvements. If we were to take that, replacing the pump in the tank at this point in the project, it really is not necessary. It was added to include everything so it could be done at this time. If we need to stage it so that we do this portion of the project in the boathouse and the landscaping, and then come back and deal with the septic on a separate issue, we can do that too.
Yeah, I'll check with, next time I'm in the office, I will check with Judy and see if they even approve any building that's what I was concerned about, is that they may not approve any building permits without upgrading all components to be Title V. So I will check on that. We also need an SE number. We need a DMF approval. I think ZBA has not been filed for yet. So we're waiting on a lot of other permitting agencies as well. So so I'm fine continuing to the next one and potentially drafting an order of conditions. But we may have to hold off a little longer if we have to do a new septic or anything.
So we could schedule for the work session, but if it turns out septic is needed to be upgraded, then we would have to continue at that point.
Correct, or they'd have to modify the project in some way that a septic would not need to be upgraded. So it's just something I want to talk to the health department about.
Okay. All right. So I guess you folks will talk about demarcation. We'll check on the septic Title V issue.
Correct.
And
They're going to submit a work protocol and work schedule.
Work protocol. That's right. Work protocol.
Bob, I got one more thing too.
Okay, let's have it.
I could.
Sure.
Currently, there's no fence around the pool or anything like that. For safety reasons, is a fence going to be installed, or is an auto pool cover going to be installed at some point?
It was not part of any of the improvements that were proposed or discussed with the team at this point.
We don't have an auto pool cover proposed. Sorry, this is David, the project leader from the ownership side. But we do have a standard safety mesh pool cover proposed to be installed, which we currently don't have any safety cover for the pool. And as far as the railing around the outside, I believe we're within the building code of 36 inches down and 36 inches out of being the bulkhead being the next step down, which would not require us to have a railing on the ocean side from a building permit perspective. So as of right now, all we have proposed is a safety mesh cover, manually operated, going onto the pool.
We did have the Board of Health representative out visiting us some time ago. And the fence around the pool was discussed with that person at the time, and they thought that since you could fall off the deck in the pool on one side or in the ocean on the other side, the pool is not a significant risk on top of the ocean, which is right next to it. You could fall off the deck into the ocean. So they didn't ask us to put a fence up.
Okay.
As far as the permit's concerned, the bulkhead is within 36 inches down and 36 inches out. So there's a second level on the outside. So
well, it's not, I don't think it's in our territory to, to discuss a safety pool cover or a fence, but it may catch up to you at some point here. That's all I had. Thank you.
okay.
Thanks, Bob. All right. So I guess we are in position pending those items that we discussed and to continue this to the next work session, which is
February 2nd.
February 2nd. If you would be so kind, Bob.
Sorry about that. I'd like to make a motion that we continue 307 Bridge Street to the next work session on February 2nd, 2022 for an order of conditions.
Latin second.
A roll call vote. Bob,
Aye.
Janet,
Aye.
Karen,
Aye.
and I vote aye. So that's,
Mary's here, Bob.
oh, Mary is here now.
Yep.
Okay. Mary, how do you vote?
Sorry, I was late to log on, but I didn't go, we are still here in Colorado, but I didn't actually go skiing today, so.
I was gonna say, you skied into to the meeting. Good for you.
So, but I vote aye.
Okay. All right. And I vote aye as well. So that's unanimous to continue. And thank you all.
Thank you very much.
See you next time.
Thank you.
All right, so Lynn, are you able to speak? Can you hear
Yes.
us? Okay.
Sorry.
That's all right. So we'll go back to 88 Siegel Road, Richard and Susan Logan, map 15A, parcel 6-H137. Proposed landscape and hardscape improvements and replacement of an existing fence.
Good afternoon, Lynn Hamlin. I'm sorry, your platform does not like Safari. You kept kicking me out of your meeting, but Chrome likes it, so let's go with this. I'll shut off my phone. Okay. This project is actually a remedial project. If you're familiar with the property, you know that it gets inundated. That whole outermost marina and that whole point out there is totally inundated with water, either from high tides or storm overwash. It's a problem for the Logans, but at this point, they simply want to address in the most efficient way possible the flooding that occurs there. So the main part of the project is to keep the road from eroding away. And the water seeks the low point in the depression in the front of their house. And it's getting in there, you can see on the plan, through the riprap area. There you go. Thank you, Nikki. And if you looked at it, the road is being eroded underneath, the earth is being eroded as the water flows into this depression, which then over time it dissipates and evaporates and does all the things water does and eventually disappears. So we thought that we went down there with a contractor and an engineer, and the best way to handle it is to put in a small riprap apron. So you're controlling the energy from the flow of the water, so the road stops eroding and it's directed into the depression where it wants to be anyway, and can utilize that as a retention basin. So that's the major part of the project. The small part along with that is replacing the split rail fence that's there and has suffered from the water impacts and age. And then the other part of the project is simply to put in granite platform steps, loose steps with the harmony grass in between. Oh, and I'm sorry. And also the septic system that was installed last year or maybe 2019, when you were out there, you noticed that the walls around the soil absorption system were not covered. So for aesthetic reasons, the Logans would like to just cover that so it looks better. And what we're proposing is the Harmony mixed grass, which is a native grass in the flat area. So you come out of the house and it will be about to the edge of the septic system. And then where it slopes down, oh, thank you. Where it slopes down, we're using a mix of coastal low grow grass and wildflowers. And that will be left to its own devices other than the once a year mowing, which is just good to maintain meadow habitat. So I think there'll be a net gain, definitely with the project, both in the interests of storm damage and flood control, and also to enhance the habitat for pollinators by revegetating the front yard. And I'll stop there and see if you have any questions.
All right, thank you. Open it up to questions from any commissioner. And there we have Bob.
Hi. The proposed Virginia rose, chokeberry, sand cherry, sweet pepperbush, plethora, that's going to be planted on that bank in that that area that's kind of bare. That's the story.
No, if you were out there to the, I don't have my direction,
the
west,
left of the new
on top
stairs.
of the stairs, we're gonna carry the regrading back there because water's sitting there, and just to make the slopes work to cover the septic wall. There's Rosa rugosa back there. And so where the Rosa rugosa is being taken out, I talked to Nikki about it, and some commissions like Rosa rugosa, some do not. Nikki recommended that we put native plants back rather than replacing with Rosa rugosa. So from the steps forward will be the seeding protocol, and from the steps back will just be replacement of Rosa rugosa shrubs with native shrubs.
I see that, yeah. And there's some drip irrigation in that area. You plan on extending that around the new plants?
Proposed,
There is existing drip irrigation around those, in that rugosa rose area on that slope.
well, you noticed more than I did, so.
I'm wondering if you're gonna extend that around the new plantings.
Well, the new plantings are meant to be self-sufficient in that environment, but it's always good to water them for a couple of years until they get
Yeah,
established.
That's what I mean. I mean, you could water them temporarily with that system if you.
Okay,
extended it.
or they'll set up, usually they set up a temporary system, usually in a drip format. So if that's there to be utilized, that would make sense.
Okay, and the riprap by the road, is that, what's that, like trap rock? Is that what you're gonna do there?
Yes, it's 6-inch stone,
Okay,
6-inch bluestone aggregate.
right, and is that, so that's gonna be enough to kind of stem the erosion in that low point?
It breaks up the velocity of the water, so it acts as a stabilizer against the road, and then it breaks up the velocity from the water, the sharp edges and the texture of it, so it's not chewing out the sand that's there and eroding the road.
And is it possible to, that's probably salt water that's running off there when it floods, correct?
Sometimes heavy rain events, I tried to take a picture, I had to go back, and it was flooded from those extreme high tides a couple of weeks ago, and that was definitely salt. So it's both, but a lot of salt inundation, yes.
Could you plant like maybe beach grass around there too to kind of help stabilize that area?
Well, beach grass is really a bad plant to use unless there's sand inundation, because beach grass needs to be inundated with sand or it will eventually choke itself out. So I don't recommend using beach grass unless you're on a dune. And because of the velocity and the water that sits there for prolonged periods of time, I think that all you can do to hold back this road is, it's a little tiny apron, it's 75 square feet. And then interestingly enough, and probably to the Logan's detriment, is this vegetation community in the depression is changing. So it's changing to be probably more wet tolerant. So I think the idea would be to just let it be what it's going to be or what it seeks to be, but stabilize the sediments, because they're all just sand sediments out there, so they're very loose. And just stabilize the sediments where the velocity is, and then let the plants determine where they want to be in the bigger area.
And the post and rail fence, the split rail fence, that will be replaced in kind, correct?
Same kind, same location, yes.
Yeah. I think that's all I had for the moment. Thank you.
Thank you, Bob. Let's see, Janet has her hand up.
Thanks, Bob. Hi, Lynn.
Hi.
I have a couple of questions. So on your plan, you have the coastal dune line and you have the 100-foot back from it, but there's not a line representing the 50-foot line. I can guess, looking at this, that it's somewhere around that 4-foot contour coming up out of the depression area, but I'm not
the reason I get concerned about it is that the regrading that's going to be happening to cover the wall around the septic gets kind of close, I think. So could you add that to there so that we're clear on making sure that everything in this project is staying, with the exception of the riprap, of course, because that's going to be in the no disturb zone. But without the line, we don't have a plan that shows that. So could you add that?
Sure.
Okay.
Do you just want that one? Because it looks like, about 300 foot that they've marked. So do you just want the one that's by the between the riprap and the 100?
So, all right, now I did actually highlight this. So 100 foot from the coastal dune and 100 foot from the coastal dune. What is the difference?
One's from the dune in the backyard. There's
Ah.
a dune in the backyard and one's from the dune in the front. Yeah, but there's no work occurring.
There's nothing happening in the back, right?
Correct.
Okay. So, okay, well that, I actually had highlighted the 100 foot from what must be the dune in the back when I was estimating. So yeah, that 50 line will be important. Next question is, so if the elevation 13 line seems to be running right around the perimeter of the house, does that mean, as I read that the entire property, with the exception of the house, is in the floodplain? Everything is.
Right, correct.
Okay. So this fill, the fill you're talking about, are you to cover the septic wall? Is that coming in from off-site? And if so, how much do you anticipate bringing in?
I don't have a volume for you. If you'd like a volume, I'd prefer to go calculate it, not in front of you, so it's accurate.
Okay.
It would be off-site. It would be compatible material. I would expect a condition to reflect that. Clean sand.
Mm-hmm.
And to be compatible with the soils that are there. But typically that's a condition, but if you'd like me to calculate you a volume, I'd be happy to.
I would like that, just so that I'm clear on how much is coming in. I'm looking at, so you're going to be smoothing out that grade a bit as it comes up to meet the top of the
just to
of the
stabilize it. Nikki,
septic
put
wall.
a little picture back. That would be helpful.
Sorry?
The photo, I have that that photograph is pretty clear.
Yeah.
So just to cover the wall strictly for aesthetics.
Yeah.
And then whatever minimal sloping for stability there.
Yep.
So on the right side of it, you really don't need anything.
There's nothing
Just-
behind. It's just going to be smoothing out the area in front to cover it and then meet the existing grade at some point. Looks like down around the 6 foot contour around there.
Yes, exactly.
Okay. Do you need any kind of a permit from the zoning board for any of this?
No.
Okay, that's good.
That's debatable. Sarah from the community development side said that all 3 of these notice of intents on today needed zoning approval and none of them have filed. So I
What it be? I have no idea what that would be for.
fill in a flood zone.
That's where I was going with that.
Okay.
So I would contact Sarah in the building department, and she should be able to guide you on what regulations that you need to file for.
Okay.
With respect to the granite steps, are you talking about like stepping stone kinds of pavers that are set at the surface, or are you talking about longer steps that are dug in and placed in there and
They're
secured?
set at the surface, but they'll have to be minimally, well, a little regrading over there, so they're flat. But they're just large block granite steps that are just placed at grade.
So there's no structure around them.
No,
There's no tread that would be like stone filled or anything like that around.
No, it's kind of hard to get from
Like
the driveway to the front
But
door.
in a different, what shape are they? Are they in the oblong?
Rectangular.
So am I thinking right when I'm thinking sort of rectangular stepping stones that are set into the soil there? Is that?
Yes, exactly. Mhm.
Oh, okay, I got it. And that I assume is that's where the 75 square feet of increase in coverage is derived from those stones.
Actually, no, I did the riprap apron is what I calculated.
Ah,
And then with the stone, other than in the flood, I mean, only half of it about is in the flood zone. Well, maybe, no, if it's 13, yeah, I guess it's all in the flood zone,
It's
but
all
I
in the
was
flood
counting
zone.
that more, I mean, again, it's board to board specific about how they envision these things, but typically with just loose stones, not connected, don't have any integrity as a structure. A lot of commissions don't count them as structures, especially if there's a wide gap of natural vegetation between them. If you want me to count it, I can adjust the sheet.
No,
but-
that's okay. I don't really have a concern with I mean, somebody else might, so I shouldn't. But for me, I don't find a concern in terms of the ability of the land to absorb floodwater or anything like that because they're minimal. Last question, is there something unusual or different about the roadway right in this location that it has collapsed so badly? Is there any kind of drainage system below it? On either side of where it has collapsed and where the riprap is going to go, everything is fine. It's all stable, only in this one area. And it appears that there have been attempts made to shore it up with sand and whatnot that had just all washed out. What's going on under there that you think might account for why this is just a tough area to deal with?
I think it's just a matter of the soil type. It's all sand out there. And it's just that's the low point. So all the water naturally gravitates towards the low point, and it's the last area to evaporate or to dissipate. So it's just a function of the existing conditions of the soil and what's happening. And as you know, there's more water every year. This isn't going to improve.
Yeah.
I don't think it's anything specific. There's no big drainage systems in the road. I mean,
No,
I feel a little bad for the homeowner in that they're basically providing road drainage without benefit of a road drainage easement, but he's the one being impacted and he's willing to use his property as a drainage basin. I mean, that's benefiting the neighborhood to his, to his detriment, but what are you going to do when it's there?
Yeah, you can't fill it, so you got to just go with that.
We actually thought about that. We thought about filling the hole, but then you're just moving the water somewhere else. So we decided to just go with what it wants to do and try to patch it up as best you can to preserve the road and help it do what it wants to do anyway.
Yeah, part of that road is now down into the gully that has formed there. Are you going to fill that whole gully with the riprap? Is it going to be, it's not just laying on the surface, there's a big gap where it all has collapsed. So is that going to get filled in with the stone?
Yeah, it should have been staked out on site. So it's the stone measures 5 by 15. So it's right off the road in where the erosion's occurring the most.
Right. But just on the property side of the road, there are pieces, and you can see it at the very bottom of this photograph, I think, is the place where the asphalt's actually begun to cave in. And the sand has collapsed and the whole thing is, so there's a gap of at least a foot or so, as I can recall looking at it, that's below the road surface that needs to be shored back up again, whether you use sand and then put the stone, the riprap on top of that. How do you keep that? How does it prevent it from happening again? Just the weight of the stones?
Well, the water the energy from the water will be dissipated. I mean, you might have to go back and prop it up 10 years from now. I mean, it might need maintenance, but at least initially you'll reinforce against the road. So they're going to, when they go in here, they'll patch it up. I mean, they'll deal with the existing conditions, abut the riprap to the pavement. And what it will do is get the settling beyond the riprap so that initial rush of water won't be chewing out that sand next to the road. So then when it gets beyond it, it'll be slower. It will just be allowed to form a pool and then dissipate.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Lynn. That's all I have for now.
Thank you, Janet. I just have a few that haven't, I think, been talked about. It would be good, I think, comes certificate of compliance time for your landscape or your planting plan. I'm forgetting what you were calling it here. It's the, well, it's actually your site plan where you have an arrow drawn to an area where the mitigation plants will go. It would be good to know a little more detail. In other words, the boundary of the mitigation and how many plants. So in other words, not just one example of each of those that you list there. So how many would be put in there? That is the way that the agent would be able to go and look at it when it's all done and figure out whether it was done according to plan.
Well, it will only be replacing what was removed. And I didn't locate every Rosa rugosa, or the surveyor didn't locate every Rosa rugosa. So I was giving them options of native plants to replace one for one. Well, actually, the Rosa rugosa are so jammed in there, you won't want to replace them one to one. What I could do is give you a minimum spacing so that the space that's filled or altered, or you have to remove the Rosa rugosa, is maximally filled to optimal density. We could do that. So basically where they're going is where you see the regrading lines, where there's overlapping Rosa rugosa that will come out or, be killed. And then instead of replacing it with a Rosa rugosa, we're going to replace it with shrubs that might be impacted from the fill with a native shrub. I can put a spacing.
Yeah, that'd be better than nothing, I think. But also just on the map, indicate sort of the boundaries of where your work is happening.
Okay.
So is it mitigation, or do you consider it mitigation or not?
No, I consider it. I think the whole plan, the whole proposal is a mitigation. The riprap's mitigation for flooding. I think you're getting a net benefit by getting a lot of native vegetation, where if in the other pictures you can see that front yard is really sparse. It's low maintenance. And I think that by putting back both the harmony mix and the combination grass and wildflower mix, there will be a net habitat benefit, but I don't think it's mitigation. I wouldn't call it.
Well, your plan says you're putting in, let me make sure I got the right one. Mitigation. So I do see where you said that the riprap could be or is considered mitigation, which is a little hard for me to wrap my head around. I would not want to really open that door, so to speak, for people to offer riprap as mitigation, literally. I understand, I think, where you're coming from, but nevertheless, it's not something we would normally ever consider mitigation. I think it's really, it serves to protect the road, but that's a little bit of a separate issue. So I'm looking for your coverage table. Yeah, you have a coverage table here where you say you're, actually, you're right. You say you're not putting any mitigation in. I'm looking at your coverage table.
The coverage table is just an increase of 75 square feet of hardscape, which is strictly the riprap.
Yeah, and sometimes we count those stones, but we're gonna look the other way on that today. All right. Nikki, do you have an opinion, since you will be the one having to certify this one way or another?
In regards to the plants?
Yeah. What would you like to see?
I guess at some point before the certificate of compliance, I'd like a list of what exactly was planted and how many, and just to confirm that it is pretty much a 1-to-1 area wise of the Rosa rugosa.
Okay.
And then just here, I assume this is a private road.
I think so. I looked that up at one point. I think it is.
I would assume so. Otherwise, I'm sure the town would have heard about the drainage
Yeah.
issues by
Yeah, I
now.
think I was trying to make that somebody else's responsibility, and I don't think I was successful, and I think that's why.
This was brought to my attention by another neighbor that the whole area is being flooded, and whether it may or may not be caused by Outermost Harbor or just general sea level coastal changes. So I am going to look into that with Ted Keon and the DPW, if there's anything we can, and with Outermost, to see if there's anything we can do for flooding for all of the neighbors. But yeah, otherwise I don't have any issues with the project. Just, once the work is done and plants are officially chosen and the numbers, just get that to me.
Okay.
And so we could put that as an OC, I guess. Also, I noticed on the NOI, I don't know if it was on your end or whether it's our end, but the pages are out of order. There's 2 page 5s and just all sort of mixed up. I don't know if that happened with the paper copies or whether it was part of the digitization, but it'd be good to have the digital copy cleaner, at least. Well, both copies should be clean, but they're sort of mixed up. And so what I have here is that, and to get the pages straightened out. Janet was interested in knowing how much fill you're going to be bringing in, and we will get a plant list, I guess, whenever you're done with it.
That's after the construction.
Right.
Because I won't even know.
Yeah,
Okay.
after the project is completed.
Okay.
Yeah.
And you want the 50-foot line on bringing
That
a revised
also.
plan?
Yeah, that's that.
Okay.
So none of those appear to be showstoppers, and so if that's the case, then I think we could schedule this, Bob, for the work session as well.
Okay, I'd like to make a motion that we continue 88 Seagull Road to the work session on February 2nd, 2022 for an order of conditions.
I think I heard a second there from somewhere on the road.
Yes.
Roll call vote, Bob.
Aye.
Janet.
Aye.
Karen.
Aye.
Mary.
Aye.
And I vote aye as well, so that's unanimous to continue to the work session. Thank you. Thank you.
All right, the last NOI is 146 Strong Island Road, Chris Dietrich, map 13M, parcel 42-C45, SE 10-3530. Removal of the existing single-family dwelling, sewage system, hardscape, invasive plant species, and construction of a new single-family dwelling, pool, hardscape, and sewage system.
Good afternoon. Through the chair, I'm John O'Reilly.
Yes, Mr. Riley.
Can you hear me? Okay.
Yeah.
We were here 2 weeks ago, maybe 3 weeks ago, had a very lengthy meeting with the commission. I believe Andrew, the landscape architect, is also on the call, and what we've done is there was quite a bit of discussion over the impervious pool deck area within the floodplain, and what we've done is we have converted that patio area to a dry lade, so it has some permeability to it. The other bit of information we revised, and I would just like to go over because we didn't get a chance last time, is the mitigation we're providing, or the square footage areas that we're providing. And I gave you an updated chart, page 7 of 8, We are proposing a net reduction in the 50-foot no disturb zone of about 1,200 square feet of hardscape and house. And we're adding within that same 50-foot buffer and actually within the resource itself, just over 4,000 square feet of restoration and mitigation plantings. And then within the 50 to 100, that's where you do see the jump in hardscape and dwelling within the 50 to 100 foot. That addition is about 2,300 square feet or just shy of 2,300 square feet. And our mitigation in that area is 645 square feet. So we've really front loaded the mitigation to the resource area itself and the 50-foot buffer zone. So with that, those were the two changes we've made. And I believe Attorney Riley's on the call, as well as Andrew Garlier. And we all be happy to answer any questions.
All right, thank you. I think, Nikki, did we have a comment letter on this?
Yes, we did, from an abutter. I can pull that
I'm
up.
not sure. I don't know if presenters are aware of it.
I am not.
Okay.
Yeah, we might as well read it at the beginning and see if they want to address any of the.
It was just recently received, I think.
Yes, I think it was yesterday, maybe.
There's no timeline to those letters.
All right, here we go.
Good question.
Oh, forgot I'm sharing my screen. Now you get to see my whole emails. All right, so after listening to the original meeting on January 12th and then reviewing the video posting, I want to make a couple of comments about some erroneous statements.
This is from, who's it from?
It's from Kim Burson, 231 Eastward Road.
Okay.
First, it was stated by Bill Riley about the flow of water in this area as only being tidal flow. This wetland is an active wetland. Most months throughout the year, there is a very diverse wildlife habitat and waterbird area. This water is primarily groundwater and natural rain fed. 2, Andrew made comments about trees being removed. The counting of the replacement trees was clearly not well documented, but more importantly, the trees that are coming down have been healthy, mature trees since the 70s. And the replacement will never properly suffice for the removal of such hardy trees. And 3, a comment was made that most homes on Old Salt Works have pools. Old Salt Works does not correlate to Strong Island Road, as there are homes on Eastward Road in between that are abutters. Not a single home that abuts the wetland area on Eastward Road, Strong Island, or Eastward have pools. The only pools on Salt Works Road are on the water side of that street, and all have been approved and built in the last 6 years. Yes, that's basically the conclusion of the letter.
Okay. I don't know how much of that is actionable. I guess the thing that did come out to me was the discussion of mature trees. It's always a particular concern of mine. And if you wouldn't mind just summarizing again the sort of mitigation that's occurring for those, for the mature trees especially.
Yes, and I'll also mention, she mentioned that I had a mistake on my, in my chart. If you recall, it said 24 trees were going in, or 24 eastern red cedars were going in, and it was only 20. And that, I think I explained last time, was because I found a way to be able to preserve the big apple tree, and that displaced, or the 4 trees that were counted, I took out so that we could preserve the apple tree. And that's, I just missed the edit on that. I've cleaned that up with the revised copy that I sent. And the mitigation for those trees, because it is, those are, you know, pretty mature trees, but I have a great deal of eastern red cedars going in. We're adding a lot of biomass in the form of trees, not being concerned with any views, down the road. It's going to be more biomass down the road because of the sheer amount of eastern red cedars. I'm sorry, I'm holding a board like I'm standing in front of you like an idiot. But of course, we do have good size 3-inch maples also going on the other end of the property as well. So we're really trying to address biomass with numbers of trees. And most people avoid that and try to stick a couple of trees because they're worried about views or one thing or another. And we're not concerned with that here. We're doing a dense planting right down this whole side property line, creating a nice evergreen wildlife corridor so the animals can get it from the wetland right directly from the vegetation of the wetland and the back of the house to the street. Hopefully they don't get hit by a car crossing the street, and then there's cover on the other side of the road. So it's, I was pretty happy with what I'd come up with for a mitigation strategy on this. I thought that you guys would be pretty thrilled with what I was proposing in terms of square footage, in terms of density. I've called out every individual plant, which I noticed I was the first person to do that all day, and the square footages of the areas. And I've also made my native plants in green so you can see where they are, and nothing's deceptive in that. This is a very, very, very good habitat that's replacing a lot of junk and also a few nice mature trees. Definitely those trees are decent trees. We've got 2 nice cedar trees, or 3 nice cedar trees, and a choke cherry. But we're doing a lot to mitigate for that, which I think is actually an improvement.
All right. The other items in that comment letter, I'm actually trying to find the copy of it.
I'll mention about the pools. I think Mr. Riley was talking specifically about pools in flood zones and not necessarily a pool on this street. Just in general, there was a comment made about, do we allow swimming pools in flood zones? I think he was addressing the fact that there's a number of swimming pools recently done that happen to be in a nearby street, but it didn't have anything to do with abutting this particular wetland. It was about the flood zone.
Yeah, that's correct. The commission has approved pools both on Old Salt Works, down on Dune Drive, and other locations. I'm sure those are 2 that come to mind. That was my comment, not that there are pools on Strong Island Road.
I apologize. No, I didn't realize you were there, Bill, for speaking for you.
Nope, no problem.
And the other item in the list, Nikki, if you can just refresh our memory. I think there were 3 main points.
Yes, so it was
Tidal flow.
Yeah,
It's not just tidal flow, it's also the still water, freshwater wetland in the area.
right.
Yeah. Yes, correct.
Through the chair, John O'Reilly. It's a freshwater wetland, and we're not contesting that. There's no tidal influence to it, or it doesn't appear to be. I think where the tidal question came up was there was some discussion on a flood zone, and the flooding events tend to correspond to high course storm tides. And as the tide recedes, the floodwaters tend to recede. And I think that's, again, focusing back on Attorney Riley's comment. That's where that comes. We're certainly not contending it's a coastal coastal resource behind the house. It is definitely a freshwater wetland, and I think the abutter is correct. I think it's a groundwater interface to that. I haven't been out there since the meeting, but the last time I was out, there was standing water in the backyard. You could clearly see it.
Yeah, and Mr. Chair, that freshwater wetland routinely floods from Bassing Harbor side. The floodwaters come in over Old Salt Works, where the we've dealt with these properties so frequently. There's a homeowner's lot next to the Watson house that agonizingly slow rebuild has been taking place on Old Salt Works for several years. Comes in, there's a little channel there, comes right in there, goes across the road and right over into the freshwater wetland. So that's where there is a flooding that takes place, but it comes in from that side, not from our side, not from the Strong Island Road side.
Right.
At least not yet.
Right. Okay. Yeah, on the points raised in the comment letter, we certainly have approved. Fortunately or unfortunately, depending on perspective, pools and floodplains, it is certainly not setting a precedent if we were to do so.
Well, I think that you know, to ease your conscience, Bob, I think the sort of the point is that because it's a pool, there's no interference with floodwaters because of that placement.
Yeah, well, my conscience is reasonably clear, but anyway, we have done it. We try to talk about it on a case by case basis. We are limited a bit in the regulations that we point to prevent it, and that is I think an issue. The other, I will speak to Andrew's my impression of his mitigation plans. Yes, I compared to many such plans, I will grant that a lot of biomass is provided. A lot of trees were provided to, even though some of the trees coming out were large, and we always get very exercised about that here in the commission. But I think you did, with the space that you had available to you in the slot, pretty reasonable job at mitigating for that. So I'm personally not. I think you've done the best you can on that. All right, so Janet, you have your hand up.
I'm just adding up numbers here. So, yeah, you know, the wisdom of putting a pool in a floodplain remains an open question. The more we do it, of course, the more precedent we set about it. But at the moment, as a pool, it doesn't go against the performance standards. It meets them technically. I was heartened to see the change from a pervious to a dry laid patio, because that does change the absorption issue. But I wanted to talk about the mitigation, just to make sure I've got my numbers right here. So you're talking about a total of 1,619 square feet, of which 1,695 is designated as restoration. That's a different area than the 1,682 for the regeneration of the wetland?
Yeah.
Yep.
I'm
And
sorry.
1312 is the native planting in the VBS, the creation of the VBS there, and then 1605 is the Cedar Wildlife Corridor. So what's the 645 that you mentioned? I don't have that on my list, so I was sitting here getting ready to add them up to see if I was coming out.
The 645, if you could share the landscape plan again.
Who are you asking to share it?
I think Nikki sharing?
Nick,
Yeah. Nikki's doing it. First of all, I had to look at her email. There we go.
Yep.
I don't have control of the cursor, but on the north side of the proposed patio and pool, there's that evergreen corridor that Andrew was talking about.
Yeah.
And the trees and the vegetation on the south or the east side of the pool, or the wetland side of the pool, that entire area is partially within the 50 and partially within the 100. So the 645 is the portion that's from the 50 foot up to the 100 foot.
Okay, I see it now.
So I didn't change I redistributed the numbers that the mitigation area. I was showing in the initial chart that we were putting, more mitigation in the 50 to 100 than we actually were. We're putting more in the 0 to 50. And that's why I wanted to change that chart.
Okay, no, I get it. Thank you. And I do appreciate breaking it out like that because the elements are all very different. And to
Yes.
that point, the wetland regeneration within the wetland area, the lawn area that's going to be let out, we haven't seen that before. It's kind of an interesting thing. But some of the issues that it brings up are to make sure that and I think we'll have to put something in the order of conditions to the homeowner will need to monitor that area so that invasives don't incur, there's no incursion. And if invasives begin to move in, that they remove them. And since it's just turf lawn that's allowed to go wild, is there any plan to ever mow it or just let nature take its course entirely? And it'll turn to weed, it'll turn to other things before the seeds that are in the abutting areas begin to take root in there and it becomes more of a naturalized area.
Yeah, from my observation, it looks like things want to grow in there. The water comes right up to pretty close to the edge of that.
Yeah.
But it's been mowed. And I really had to wrestle with that because I was starting to put plants in there for restoration. And I was just envisioning people digging holes in this grass and putting things in, and then it was going to be muddy. And I just thought, this is creeping. It wants to creep in on its own anyway. Why don't I leave the wetland alone and then put up a single rail fence so nobody's going to get in there and mow anything, and then put in between that fence and the wetland an extra layer of vegetated buffer. And that's the conclusion that I came up with that would be, a lot less intrusive than scraping out a lawn and all of that. I just didn't think that was the way to go.
Once you have that level of interference in the systems, you open up for invasive vegetation to take over. I think it's less likely if the lawn just is let to go and die ultimately on its own.
Yeah, and looking at the vegetation, the existing vegetation that's in the wetland, it's native stuff.
Yeah.
Primarily. The invasive stuff was more on the upland side with especially with the honeysuckle and such. But in that wetland itself, and it's nice wetland plants. It's not like junky stuff. I was pretty impressed with the vegetation that's growing in the wetland.
Yeah, no, it's a pretty healthy wetland system. So
yeah.
Okay, that's it. That's all I had. Thank you.
Yeah.
I've muted myself. Okay, Bob.
Okay, ready? Okay, thanks. I got a few questions. That area where the existing grass is, Andrew, on the back side of the house, in the backyard, were you going to overseed any of that?
Yeah. There's a note on there. There's a couple notes, I think. It's labeled as existing grass, and then the area that's being inside of the limit of work line, that's New England coastal seed mix, and I have that on I think it's on the face of the plan. You can see what it is, and the same thing with the area where the driveway is being removed, that will be restored with that as well, and then and the disturbed area between the swimming pool and the limit of work line. The limit of work line for construction is going to keep damage from that happening on that existing lawn. Outside of the limit of work line, I've got two limit of work lines. One is for construction and the other one is just an extra barrier for when they do the mitigation planting. But there should be no disturbing of the lawn outside of the construction limit of work line, except for the actual digging of the holes for the mitigation plants.
Okay, and when you plant the plants close to the wetland, will you be overseeding that area as well?
I didn't envision that as being, but it certainly could be. I'm not thinking that they're going to remove the lawn so much as just cut holes in it for where the plants are going to go.
Okay. The paved areas where the patio is around the pool,
Yeah.
the front walkway in front of the house, and the walkway to the south of the house. What kind of joint sand are you going to use? Is it just going to be sand or stone dust, or is it going to be a polymer type of material?
Yeah, he's going to do a dry laid. I think the homeowner, I wrote granite on the plan originally. I think he's going to use travertine, and I think it's going to be open joint.
Okay, will that allow the water to seep in through?
That's the idea of it, yeah. Instead of
Okay.
having a mortar joint. And I'm going to be, by the way, to Janet's been asking me a lot about trying to not do the wet laid patios. And I've been talking to a couple of the contractors, and some of the stones, one of the problems I was having early on with the stones was most of them are made with random patterns. So you have a 2 foot by 2 foot piece and a 1 foot by 1 foot, and they go next to each other. So in order for those joints to be done, they're cut at a certain size, and it forces the joint to be a certain size. Well, now they've got some of the stones, the granites and the travertines. They're also cutting them so the joints can be closer than 3/8 of an inch. Because a 3/8 of an inch joint, you're going to have something in between there, or else you're going to catch your foot. But in talking to some of the contractors since our last meeting, that the stones are now available where the joint is not tight, but tighter than that, so you don't rip your foot on the edge of the stone. So I'm going to be, from here forward, I'm not going to be putting in wet laid patios around swimming pools unless somebody demands it of me. So.
But do you have to put a joint material in those joints as well?
No, you don't have to.
Okay, that would be better for us. You know, better for the floodwaters and so forth.
Yep.
Okay.
I'm still going to leave the drainage system around that swimming pool area just as an extra precaution in the plan. Just, you know, for a very major storm where the downpours like crazy, there's a place for that water to go. Unless you ask me to take it out.
And I believe we wanted drainage at the bottom of the driveway too. Was that changed?
I think the discussion, I think that's something that Mr. O'Reilly should answer, the engineer, of why we can't do it. I believe it's high groundwater and because it's off of the lot in the road layout.
John O'Reilly here. We positioned the drainage inlets, the the 3 catch basins of the gutter inlets, adjacent right to the property line. Yeah. So we're catching the runoff prior to its draining onto the roadway, and so we're controlling our water, you know, from our own site. That's the concept, and that's the proposal, is that we're going to trap our water before it gets off our site, which is our responsibility.
Okay, so those 2 catch basins or whatever they are, dry wells, those will be sufficient?
Yes, they will be sufficient. We did talk about a trench drain, which I'm typically not a big fan of, but if they are effective, if they're maintained, we may opt out for the trench drain, particularly on the southern property, southern driveway entrance. But yeah, the intent is that either the gutter inlet that's shown on the plan or a trench drain, you know, will be sufficient to control our water.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Bob.
That's all I had, Bob. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Bob. Anyone else? I think that I don't have anything else. I think the one change that we were particularly interested in as far as the dry laid patio, and so I can't think of anything else that we were looking for from you. someone can remember something else, but if, so given that, Bob, I think that once again, we're ready for going to order of conditions.
Okay, I'd like to make a motion that we continue 146 Strong Island Road to the work session on February 2nd, 2022 for an
No, wait
order.
a minute, Janet's got her
Yeah,
hand.
before we vote on this, I just wanted to double check where they are with zoning. Because we can't issue an order of conditions until they've.
Of course you can. Crying out loud.
From what
We
I've
won't.
heard,
We'd
have not
rather
filed yet.
not until we know what's going to be happening.
Well, we're filed with zoning. What I would suggest is that I'll send the date to Nikki a little later on or tomorrow morning. But we'd like you to take it up at your February 2nd meeting, even if you don't actually issue it at that time. So there won't be another month delay before we get it, right? Because we are filed. I just don't have our hearing date in front of me right now.
Okay.
How do you feel about that, Nikki?
So generally, I get every building and zoning permit update, or not update, but their hearing notices beforehand, and I comment on each one, and myself or Crystal will review the file that we have, make sure the plan matches, make sure they've either been approved for an order or are going to be approved for an order, most likely, and then we comment for the zoning board. And then zoning board, eventually will tell us if they've approved it or if modifications need to be done. And then if the plans don't match, then I figure out if they need to come back to us for a plan change, or if it's just a minor thing, small planting changes or something like that. So I am fine with that, because I do review every building permit, zoning permit that comes in before I sign off on it to see if it has conservation approval.
So if zoning hasn't been approved by our work session, and as zoning makes substantial changes,
then they could potentially have to come back for an amended order.
Yeah.
But once they show me their the site plan they've submitted to zoning and building, I can say, oh, this matches. We're about to issue an order, and that's generally sufficient.
So in this situation, we're building on the existing footprint. We don't believe there'll be any change in that regard. If the commission issues a comment letter that says they've approved it and the project is capable of being conditioned, they'll go ahead and issue their decision, presumably allowing the removal of the existing structure and the construction of a new one. So I think the only I'd be surprised if they commented, but I think the only issue would be if they have a concern about the swimming pool. I don't think they will. They haven't up till now. So what I would ask is let it go to the work session, have a draft order, and then we would agree, that the order wouldn't be issued until we have the zoning decision, so that we wouldn't have a decision issued, that would have to be amended. In other words, if the zoning board does something so that it requires a change on the conservation side, we can simply request to return to the hearing process so we can amend the order at that time. But I will remind the commission that you've issued orders, or the commission has issued orders many, many times over the years before we have a full zoning approval. And, it has not been a problem to date. So we'd ask to just go to the next work session and we'll keep Nikki involved, let her know what the schedule is. And hopefully we'll just, you'll be able to, design an order and then issue it after the zoning.
So in other words, Bill, not vote on it, just talk about it, get it ironed out. Is that what you're saying?
Well, I think you can vote on it.
Janet, do you remember us applying?
We don't require them to have approval from zoning to issue an order. So we can issue it, and if they have a bunch of changes that have to come up before us again, yes, it's, it's a pain for us and a pain for everybody to have all the changes and issue an amended order. But we don't have any regulations that say that they have to have zoning or health or building approval. We issue on our own. And so I'm fine with moving it to the work session. We can iron out any details that need to be. I can talk with Sarah in the zoning area to see if she has any, red flags that would significantly change our plan. And then again, if zoning requires something on the plan to change, then they can either, depending on what it is, request an amended order or most likely just a field change.
Yeah. It's just not a habit I think we should get into. It is cleaner if we can have that out of the way before we vote. But yeah, in this particular case,
it's project dependent. If it was something like 68 Shell that kept coming back and forth between all of us, then yes, we would want to wait. But I don't think anything significant is going to get changed with zoning or
on this particular project.
On this project, right?
Yeah. Okay. All right. Everyone's shaking their head up and down. So let's go ahead and continue the work session, Bob, if you would. You are muted. I don't know if you're speaking. I can't tell.
Yeah, here we go.
There we go.
Okay, I move to continue 146 Strong Island Road to the work session on February 2nd, 2022 for an order of conditions.
Latin second.
Roll call vote. Bob.
Aye.
Janet.
Aye.
Karen.
Aye.
Mary.
Aye.
I vote aye as well.
All right. Thank you very much. Appreciate your time
Thank you.
tonight.
Thank you.
Certainly. Bye-bye.
All right, the baby stole my agenda, so I had to find it for a second. Next are the requests for certificate of compliance. 185 Sears Road, Richard E. and Sandra D. McDonald, map 11A1, parcel 2, SC 3243. And this was for a rock revetment. And then we have, the first two I propose to do together because I don't see any issues with them. And the second one would be 94 Uncle Albert's Drive, ULAD Investment LLC, map 12E, parcel 2-1, SC 210-3303, construction of a pool and fence. Thank you for that. She has an opinion about that one, apparently. So those two were both, so 185 Sears Road, the beach grass, this was applied for previously, and Callie had said that they hadn't met the planting year requirement for the beach grass. So the beach grass is there. They provided pictures that I put in the Dropbox. It's doing well. So there'd be the normal ongoing conditions as well as Lynn Hamlin mentioned earlier, conveniently, beach grass should be inundated by sand periodically, and typically if it's behind a wall or something, it will not be inundated by sand. So I would do a condition saying either if the beach grass ends up dying out, then they would have to replant with a more appropriate native vegetation such as Carolina rose or something like that. The 94, Evelyn, be quiet.
Oh, she's got an opinion about this.
She is a very opinionated baby, I'll give her that. 94 Uncle Albert's was, again, a substantial compliance. And they provided a pretty good rain garden maintenance protocol to keep up with. So I'm fine with both of those being approved. So if anyone has any questions, feel free, but otherwise we could.
I have a question about 185. So
Sure.
it's funny that the beach grass is all coming up today, because that's an area that, you guys all know, I walk there all the time. And I've been so pleased with how that beach grass has taken in that location. I have looked at it and photographed it as an example of how, planting above a revetment can be done right. They didn't do it right on time, which is why they had to go back and do it. But and it's thriving there. So at least for the moment. So it got me thinking about what you just said. So two questions about nourishment. One is, can periodic nourishment of beach grass do something about providing the inundation that it needs? It would be a shame to see this really robust beach grass die. And if so, is that something, does this revetment already have a nourishment requirement that we could add it on to, so they nourish both the beach grass above the revetment and then down into the revetment?
I do not know if they have a nourishment requirement. I don't know if anyone is on from the applicant for this one. I don't know if nourishment would necessarily, because it would just be sand sitting there. So it's not the same as dune wind-blown sand. It's just sand that you would dump on top of it. And I don't think that would help. It looks like Nate is here.
Yeah.
Hi, Nate Jones for the record, from Coastal Engineering. This project does have annual nourishment, but it's based on the monitoring reports. So we do a survey every year of the beach to see if it's dropped or if it's accreted. So there is a nourishment component, but it's based on the monitoring reports.
Would you, I do remember now when I looked at this, that you said that you did not think nourishment was needed at this point, that it had been accreting so far.
Right, so the survey from this year showed an accretion of, I forget the yards, but like 20 to 40 yards or something. So since post-construction. So at this time, we don't think any is necessary. There's salt marsh out there, so we don't want to smother it. So yeah, at this time, we don't need any.
Okay.
And would you agree that putting sand on top of beach grass on behind a revetment probably wouldn't help the beach grass any?
I don't really have an opinion on that. I've never heard of putting sand on the beach grass itself, but yeah, I guess I don't have the expertise to answer that question.
Yeah, I mean, that's more of like a Wilkinson type of question. Generally, I have heard that you don't put beach grass behind anything that's not going to get windblown sand on it. But if it's doing well here, then we'll let it go. And like I said, I'll put the ongoing condition that if the beach grass dies, then they will have to put some sort of better vegetation there that doesn't need sand.
I think the owners would be fine with that because they want vegetation on that slope no matter what to hold it on. So if the beach grass dies, then we can find a different species that'll work.
All right, and then Bob.
No, I would just, just as a memo for the future, I guess we should look twice about having beach grass where it can't get sand nourishment naturally, just so we don't have to deal with it.
Yeah, these have been popping up, the pre-me ones. So yeah, in general, in project review, I would say, why put beach grass here? We can put something else.
Yeah. Bob, you had a comment, question?
Just an editorial. I planted beach grass in parking lot medians, and it's done fine over the
Oh,
years.
okay. It's harder than we think it is. All right.
Oh, that's my take on it.
Okay.
Good. Hope it continues to thrive there.
Okay, so I'd like to move that we approve.
Are we going to do the third one, or are we?
I would just do the first two, and then
Just the first two, okay.
I have a couple comments on the second one, so I just wanted to, or the third one, so I just wanted to get the first two out of the way first.
Oh, okay, all right. Go ahead, Bob. I'm sorry.
That's okay. I'd like to move that we approve the certificate of compliance for 85 Sears Road and 94 Uncle Albert's Drive.
I second.
Roll call vote. Bob,
Aye.
Janet,
Aye.
Karen,
Aye.
Mary,
Aye.
and I vote aye.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, so the last certificate is for 328 Widow Road, Annabelle LLC, map 13K, parcel 11-W14, SE 103351, alterations and additions to existing dwelling. I didn't really have any questions about the actual footprint of the house. There was just a couple special conditions that I was curious about. And I'm just trying to pull those up. So the turf lawn area shall be allowed to naturalize, subject only to mowing no more than 3 times each year as needed. It's kind of hard to prove how much it's being mowed. So I didn't know if they had any comment on that. There was another one. Where is it? Again, no fertilizers, pesticides. Oh, and if because I'm not in the office and I just caught this one this morning, a request for determination shall be filed for the pathway to the beach before the expiration of this order of conditions. So I'm not sure if that has been filed for. I don't know if the representative is on the call. Doesn't sound like it.
Doesn't sound like anybody here for 328 Widow. All right.
So I'm going to, I think the best thing is for me to reach out to them and make sure they filed that RDA and see if they have any sort of mowing protocol that for the lawn. Okay. I don't understand why a turf lawn would only be mowed 3 times a year. So I'm a little confused by that.
Trying to remember if I remember this project. I don't know, Janet, do you remember?
I'm looking at this. I just pulled up the site plan because I'm scratching my head about it. And I think this is one where they had an agreement with the abutting neighbor that they would do this and let this area go to sort of a meadowy thing rather than I'm thinking that might be what it is. I'm looking at this plan and it's not really.
Yeah, I sort of remember the address, but I don't remember this plan. So
This is the property on the cul-de-sac, correct?
Yes.
Yes. On the right?
Yeah.
And we had a discussion with Bill Riley, if you remember, the lawn below on the coastal bank. We mentioned it, and they said that they would mow it infrequently.
Yeah.
I guess that could be considered 3 times a year.
Yeah. That, you can see it
Yeah,
right below the house.
You're right, exactly. But that's it, Bob. It's that lawn that's below the coastal bank. If you can see where I'm pointing, this area below the coastal bank had been lawn. And
Yes.
they
Yeah.
agreed to not irrigate it, not treat it in any way, and just mow it. I think is what we landed on was a few times a year, as hard
Yeah.
as that is to define and enforce.
Yeah, without any fertilizer or pesticides
Yep.
or anything.
Yep. Yep.
Because I think it may even have irrigation right now, but because it was pretty green, I think.
It was green. I remember that.
I mean, even the COC pictures, it's pretty green. So yeah,
than it
this is
should be.
one I wanted to look into a little more. Was one I thought was going to be a simple, oh, yep, the as-built matches what was approved, but then I saw those conditions and they were a little harder to measure. So I want to reach out to the COC applicant and perhaps do a site visit with them or request some sort of planting protocol or something like that.
Yeah, so it makes sense.
Or not plant, sorry, mowing protocol.
Right. Okay. So we're not voting on this one at this moment then.
Yeah, we don't really have to vote on anything. We can just continue it to the work session.
Oh, okay.
We'll hold that one.
All right, so that one will be moved to the February 2nd. I mean, it might be cleaner to go ahead and vote to continue it to the 2nd.
Okay.
Okay. I'd like to make a motion that we continue 328 Witter Road to the work session on February 2nd, 2022 for a further review of the certificate of compliance.
Martin second.
We'll call vote. Bob.
Aye.
Janet.
Aye.
Karen.
Aye.
Mary.
Aye.
And I vote aye.
All right, then we have the minutes for December 8th, 2021, December 15th, 2021, and January 5th, 2022. I don't know if anyone had any major comments or we want to vote on them all at once.
Yeah, I didn't have many. Let me just all take a moment to go through, go them, oldest to newest, and
Okay.
see if we can.
I have something small.
Okay, Bob.
On December 8th, on 212 Sears Road.
Hang on. 212 Sears. That's toward the end, I guess. Yep. Okay.
The second to the last sentence, beach grass is mentioned, and it should have another S at the end.
That's the French pronunciation.
Right now it's GRAS instead of GRASS.
Okay.
Thank you. That's all I had. That's all. That's it for me.
Yeah. I don't have anything.
The only thing I had was Katrine Higgins' last name.
Oh yeah. That's right. Are you who's updating these? Are you doing it?
I
Janet,
am.
Okay.
I am, and Nicole, I got the light bulb went on over my head for once today when I thought, why do I take these out, create them on my desktop, mark them up, and then email them back to you? I'm just marking it up in the Dropbox. Like, hello, why wasn't I doing that before? So
yeah, it's actually really weird because Crystal and I do everything via Teams to share things, and then sometimes hers if we happen to be editing something at the same time, it doesn't really work.
Yeah.
It's a pain, which is why sometimes the minutes have been uploaded that are half complete because I didn't have the right digital version. So all of them, all this digital stuff is a pain.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. But rather than
Just upload.
emailing around, you can just go into the Dropbox and pull up the changes that I just made in there, and that's done.
Yeah, it should. Generally, it will show the date that it was last, the last person that edited it and what the date was. So that gives us a pretty clear idea of if it's the correct version or not.
Okay. And then the 15th.
I just realized I was looking at the wrong copies. Anybody have anything? Yeah, I don't. All right. Should move on to the January 5th.
Button second.
Well, no, wait, we haven't
Oh,
got
it
not
was-
quite ready.
sorry.
Not quite ready for it. Soon.
I thought I
soon.
heard Bob.
You're on the job there.
I second that. I second that.
It. Okay.
Okay. These are ands from the work session. Okay. Yep.
Oh yeah, on this one, on 212 Sears Road for January 5th. I thought I said poor man's revetment instead of poor man's riprap, if it makes any difference.
No, it's a revetment.
Yeah. And existing small scattered stones will be incorporated. Because I got all agitated about maybe the big ones being incorporated. He assured me that that was not the case. That's all I had. Anyone else?
Nope.
Okay, so I guess with those captured, I guess Bob, you can.
Okay, I'd like to move that we approve the minutes for December 8th, 2021, December 15th, 2021, and January 5th, 2022.
Latin second.
Roll call vote. Bob.
Aye.
Janet.
Aye.
Karen.
Aye.
Mary.
Aye.
And I vote aye as well. So the last item Jim Nicky was getting ready to say is virtual versus in-person meetings. And I think we haven't really as a group ever discussed it. There was a note that came from the board and I couldn't quite tell what it seems like there's some who are, I don't know, maybe advocating for in-person, maybe, and others advocating for virtual. And I just was trying
I have some insight on this because
Okay,
I
good.
think everybody will like this because I happen to have been listening to a select board hearing 2 weeks ago or so, and they were talking about this, and they were talking about whether they were going to issue an order requiring boards to all meet virtually, because this was just during that big ramp up of the latest surge. And Jill Goldsmith opined that the staff of the town would really like that because they're not comfortable meeting in person. And then someone said, well, how many do meet in person? I didn't think any did. And it turns out, I don't know who's on this call, that really only the zoning board meets in person. And then when one of them asked, well, why is that? They said, quote, because they can't do presentations virtually. They have to be in
Okay.
person to be able to see the plans and have the presentations, to which I felt like jumping up out of my chair and going, hello? What are you talking about?
Interesting.
Anyway, that was, so they decided to just not to require it and just recommend that boards meet virtually for the time being. It was the end of all of that, so.
So I don't know that, I thought I would just do a quick reading of the room to figure out where people are on, really we have three choices ultimately. As I mentioned every week, every time we have these, is that we're authorized through April for virtual. But at some point, you would think that we're going to have to make a decision as to whether to go to hopefully a hybrid, hopefully not, I don't know, or in person only, or stay virtual. But what are people's thoughts about that? I just thought I would go around the room and what are your thoughts about it? Because we'll probably be forced to deal with it at some point, maybe sooner than later. Anybody?
This is Mary. I guess my feeling is I'd prefer to have the hybrid where you could be in person or online because it provides the most flexibility. But I do see the advantage of meeting in person. It's easier to have sidebar conversations for those of us who don't understand everything we're talking about to gain that insight. But also, right now, I enjoy the flexibility of not having to be in Chatham. So
right, sitting in your ski lodge while you're
sitting exactly. So so that's why to me the hybrid is the best option.
Okay.
But
all right, anybody else?
I think we've gotten really good at doing this.
We have
too. Yeah, we've worked it out.
It is a lot more convenient.
Yeah.
It is.
But I'm fine with going back if we have to at some point. But right now, I think it's a good fit.
Yeah.
But Karen had something too.
Yeah, Karen.
Yeah, I support the hybrid right now. I would love to be able to do it in person, but my concern is it doesn't seem like we are yet under control with all of our COVID cases. And I think it's premature to meet in person. But having said that, Bob, when you read the thing in the beginning, the order only goes to April 1st.
I know.
So what are we in violation after that?
I don't think so. I think that the town has made provisions for all boards to meet virtually, and they didn't put a drop dead date on it. I'm not particularly worried that the state's going to force the boards to meet in person as of April 1st. I don't think that's likely to happen. But we'll see. You never know. But for myself, back in the beginning of the pandemic, the hybrid approach was pretty terrible because people couldn't figure out people who were on the platform couldn't see or hear. And this was not for us, it was in other boards that I was on. But I think they've made great improvements since then. And when I watch the select board meet in person in the hearing room with the big screen, and some presenters are doing it virtually and some people are in the audience, and it seems to go pretty well. So I'm hopeful that something like that will preserve flexibility, but I'm also desperate to get back together because not until this moment did I realize that Karen and Mary have never sat in the hearing room. We've never,
right.
There's something that you lose when you lose the ability to make eye contact and have these kinds of conversations, particularly when we're doing orders, which we do around a big conference table in the small room, and it's a lot more conversation and back and forth, and it is a learning opportunity that we're missing by not doing that, but we'll see. Hopefully come spring we'll be in a good place.
Yeah, who knows? Anyway, what I'm hearing is hybrid. And that's
I
kind
think, but Bob, I think that's just for the time being. I mean, I really would like to be in person. I just, right now, I don't, we still have mask mandates and things. And until that gets sorted out, it's kind of premature.
no, I agree. It is premature, but
Yeah.
come the day when things are looking better, I find it hard to think about just going back strictly in person, because as Janet said, and we worked it out. It actually works. I think it's very efficient.
I think we're
I
very.
think we can get a lot of work done.
I agree.
Very efficiently and quick. And I don't see any reason to throw all that away personally.
We have sped up our process since we've been doing it.
And I think it gives representatives more flexibility. They can sit there and they can be doing other things while they're waiting for their turn to come up. And I think it's easier for them rather than to sit in the big room waiting for them to be called.
Yeah.
So it's just always felt like a waste of time to me.
Oh,
Okay, Mark Van Hork,
Yeah.
you have a comment on this?
Hey guys, I just wanted to let you know that the hybrid capability is not going away, that you will always have the Teams component in your live meetings moving forward. I think the main thing we're looking to the governor for is whether the requirement for a quorum be changed. That right now the quorum requirements have been waived, and April 1st, I believe that may rescind back to the original, where you would have to at least have a quorum in the room, but some members could continue to observe. I don't know if they would necessarily be able to vote, but they would be able to take part in the meeting in some capacity. So it's the quorum requirement. I think we're waiting
I
on.
didn't realize that. All right. Thank you for that.
Thank you.
Yep.
Okay. Well, anyway, that decision will come before us at some point. All right. I guess we're done, right, Bob? If you would like to.
Just want to make I just have a quick thing.
Okay.
I don't want to be the Conservation Commission police. On Cockle Cove Road, and if you drive all the way, almost to the beach, about the 5th house before you get to the end, there's a house that probably the landscaping has been converted probably within the last 3 years or so, 2 or 3 years. And it drives me crazy every time I drive by this house, but there's a green lawn and a white picket fence right across the road from the marsh. So anyway, I think
I know which one you're talking about, Bob.
And so I think I was on the commission when this was converted, and I don't recall it ever coming before us. So I just wanted to make mention of that.
Yeah, you drive down Cockle Cove, you'll see it on your left, right?
It's on the right.
On the right.
The right. Oh, wait a minute. Maybe I'm thinking of a different
We
one.
did a couple of projects there on the right side down toward the end of Cockle Cove. That was the one where the neighbors hated each other. I shouldn't say, but
Not an uncommon.
there was a lot of controversy in the local neighborhood about what some of the folks wanted to do. And I remember that they were renovating one of the cottages on the property and some other stuff. So I was just there yesterday, and I didn't even notice as I drove by. So now you're going to have to make me take the dog back down there and go.
Well, maybe it was heard before I, was on the commission.
Just out of curiosity, do we have any? Is there any precedent where somebody from the commission or Nikki just writes a letter to the homeowner, just reminding them of the wetland resources that are nearby and encouraging?
Nikki will do that. Send out,
not a threatening letter, just
you can get up for a notice of violation if they don't. But she can start. She starts with, it's come to our attention that there's a question about your property, and can you supply?
Yeah, just like to raise the issue before
if you see
getting
stuff,
lawyers or anybody involved.
If you see stuff, send the pictures to Nikki. And so, Nikki, I actually have 2 sets of pictures I'm sending you, because after last week's storm, and I really worry about this weekend's storm, two of the projects along Stage Harbor, 65 Sears Road, where they put in the fiber rolls and then put the nourishment on top. The nourishment is gone. The fiber rolls are exposed. And the same thing at 157 Sears Road, both 65 and 157, all the nourishment is gone on the fiber rolls that are sitting there, and the fiber rolls are now exposed, and we've got a big storm coming. So anyway, I'll send you the pictures, Nikki, so you can call Wilkinson maybe tomorrow and say somebody ought to get out there and take a look.
Yep. So in general, for any violations, I mean, as you may know, we now have started sending out letters to people who buy a property in conservation jurisdiction, telling them that they are in our jurisdiction, and Crystal saves those letters so that we don't send them certified because it's too expensive. So we can't officially say they got the letter, but we can say that we sent it and you should know that you are in our jurisdiction. So that helps with the I didn't know type of people. And then for any violations that you guys see, send me a picture. I can't, I mean, obviously I'm not walking around town looking for every violation in the world. So if, so I basically rely on townspeople to send me their violation request look into type of thing. So so pictures and all that kind of stuff. So if I'm sorry, the baby just fell asleep, of course.
Right at the end of the meeting, yeah.
So just send me anything that if you see anything. I mean, that's how I find out about these things. It's by people telling me, because I can't. I mean, anybody
can notify. Any person can notify. We're not, as commissioners, deputized anyway. We're just reporting things we see.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, I just sent you those photos so you can take a look.
So Nikki, do you know which property Bob and Janet are talking about on Cockle Cove, or does somebody need to send Nikki an address? Can someone send?
I mean, I always prefer an exact address, so that I can look up and review the file before I even go out to the site.
Yeah, the next time I'm in the area, I can do that.
Yeah, me too, because I take the dog down there a lot. So if I'm there first, whoever goes there first will shoot a picture with the address on it and send it to you.
Because we don't want to drive Bob crazy by having to drive by this all the time and just get angry about it. So we nip it in the bud.
The lawn is as green as can be, and there's a white picket fence.
Yeah, we don't like green lawns, that's for sure.
We don't like white picket fences across from the salt marsh.
And the road is between the house and the.
Yeah, that was true of Fox Hill too, and then we still made them take down the white picket fence.
Yeah, and I'm sure all the natives were removed too before the lawn was put in, so. But anyway, I'll let you know. Thank you.
Okay. And with that.
Make a motion to adjourn.
Latin second.
There we go. Roll call vote, Bob.
Aye.
Janet.
Aye.
Karen.
Aye.
Mary. Oh, here we
Aye.
go. And who else do we have voting here? Do we have a vote? Okay. I'll vote. Yeah, there's a vote. There's a thumbs up. And I vote aye as well. So.
I'll see you. Take care.
Take care.